What is up, my Lorcana Goons? And welcome back to the Lorcana Goons channel. My name is Kevin. We're joined with Zach Stone here for the Monday weekly Meta Watch video. We're going to go over some meta trends, cards that are being very popularized right now in this tournament landscape as we cover some recent big player tournaments, dude. We had the 10K and the 15K hosted by PPG. These tournaments were as big as 300, 400 player tournaments. It was pretty intense, Zach Stone, and I love to see the Lorcana community thriving right now while we don't have any official events.
Yeah, Kevin, this is honestly a very exciting weekend. I know you and I talked about how we missed out on going to this event. It was originally advertised as a 5K and got bumped up to a 10K for the amount of people that are entering. And this created a huge tournament. We have the Pro Play Game Summit giving us what we want, and that's more Lorcana. And with more Lorcana means the deck lists from this event. So this is Dre's deck. He overall made second place after top cut. He played it out and lost in the finals, but still being first after Swiss has got to feel good knowing you're locked in for choosing first in every game. But this is his Amber Emerald Sing Together deck. It's definitely a control deck, and it's got all the cards you'd love to see. You got the Aerial Singer, Diablo Shift Package, Prince John, Muses, Kitas, Under the Seas, You Have Forgotten Me's, and a lot of other discard cards. We got the Luis. I think this is the 3-cost 4/3. When you play this character, you give a chosen character Reckless, and he enters play Exerted. So he forces a lot of cards to have to do something else, for example, like Genie, Wish Fulfilled, or Daisy Duck. This is just a newer card from Reign of Jafar, which is that and Chip, I think, are the only ones from the newer set. I actually got to talk to Dre before he flew out to this tournament, and he showed me the deck he was playing, and I was a little unsure about the deck. I definitely told him that he shouldn't play it. So he proved me wrong there, but if anybody can do it, it was you can't forget about Dre.
Yeah, the deck is really strong. Zach and I were talking about it over the weekend. This is the only deck that has a one-sided board removal. You know, we have Be Prepared in the Game, which is a card that can basically remove every character on the board, right? And in this deck, you have Under the Sea. Now, Under the Sea only works on the opponent's board. However, it's only 2 strength cost characters or less. But the best combo, the combos you can do with this deck where you utilize Kita, Lost in the Woods, painting the roses red to ensure that every character on your opponent's side of the board is an Under the Sea target is really unfair. I feel like there's so many combo lines with this deck in particular, and there's so many ways to set up that Under the Sea situation where this deck is something that should not be slept on. I love the addition of Louis in this deck. This card and the Chip definitely add a little bit more of consistency. Overall, having an extra discard card with your Prince John is very nice, right? You always want to trigger your Prince John, but having that Louis on there on turn 3 can really slow the game down because, like you said, Zach, it's more of a control deck. You know, a lot of these aggro decks that have been running around post World Champs meta are going to try and run away with the game in the beginning, and you don't have too many characters to stop your opponent in the early game. So that Louis having 4 strength and giving an opponent Reckless is really powerful. He does land on the board Exerted, right? But if you give Reckless to an opposing Daisy Duck or a Genie, your Louis is going to survive that challenge if that's the only character that you have turned sideways, right? I also want to talk about this 2-cost Aladdin here. This is a card from set 1. It's a 2-cost Inkable, 2 strength, 2 willpower with Ward. That's it. That's all it does, right? But I think the reason why you want this card on board is because you want as many characters on the field so that you can sing together Under the Sea, right? Very strong deck. Like you said, Zach, you need to be a player like Dre to be able to pilot it all the way to the top. Huge shout out getting second place at this Lorcana Friday 10K. This was like a 350 player tournament. Wow.
All right. And we did reach out to Dre. He did let us know that some of the cards that overall performed the best for him, Lewis was overall MVP against all the aggro decks. He basically just soloed all those decks. He wants to add a 4th Aladdin. There's not too many cards I think he was interested in taking out, though. It's hard to cut. He might cut the Chip. He might be cutting Lost in the Woods, but the one-ofs were there just to kind of be more flexible options. being able to just have an extra card that says discard a card is really good when you just have Prince John into those control matchups. You do need to rip their whole hand, and you have to let them play off the top of their deck. And he did go into how the Lady Tremaine and Muses combo. He calls it the blender. You're basically playing Lady Tremaine, adding back Bruno, singing Bruno with Lady Tremaine. Muses bounces back your Lady Tremaine, and you do it all over again. And you're just ripping cards out consistently. This was basically his like MVP game plan. And yeah, we'll go over more stuff later in the video about what he decides to do with with the card choices. And make sure you guys are here till the end of the video because we will be mulliganing with this deck, and he did go over some mulliganing tips too.
And in first place of this PPG Friday tournament, we have Jordan Serio over here with an Amethyst Emerald deck that looks like it's revolving around its discard strategy, right? But we also have a lot of evasive characters. You have Genie Wish Fulfilled, Iago, Elsa Fifth Spirit, and Peter Pan Shadowfinder, which will help give all of those evasive characters rush. You also got the multiple Diablos in this deck, which I think is just broken. This deck plays some of the best cards in the game, right? You have all the Diablos, Shift Diablo, Prince John, you got discard cards, but we're also seeing some other interesting cards like They Never Come Back. This is a 3-cost action card, inkable. Actions are very good in this deck, right? Because you want to be able to discard them for your Diablo shift. This card says up to 2 chosen characters cannot ready at the start of the next turn, and you draw a card. Not too shabby in my opinion. Lets you draw a card so it kind of replaces itself. It's a card that can freeze the opposing board if the cards are already exerted. So if you're able to, somehow get to 6 ink and you play an Elsa Fifth Spirit, you can exert an opposing character, then slap on They Never Come Back, and now 2 characters can't ready for the turn. That'll let you kind of set up some Prince Johns. Maybe you want to set up some Genies, some chips, so you can control the hand in that situation. And 1 copy of Hidden Cove, Zach. Only 1 copy of Hidden Cove, because it's still very nice to shift Diablo and move him into the cove, right?
Yeah, he actually played this deck at the next tournament the following day because he got a 2-round bye. And he said on Twitter that don't play They Never Came Back. It's really bad. So he played Hypnotize instead, actually, in his following deck list.
Oh.
And he made top cut again. He actually made it into the top 8, which is an incredible feat. Back-to-back tops with a win in the first tournament is insane. Kudos to you, Jordan. You crushed it. I do like that one Hidden Cove, Kevin, because not only is it like being able to move Diablo is really good, we don't see a lot of brawls nowadays, so I'm not too sure if that's always necessary. But what we do see a lot is we see a lot of Maui sharks, and being able to move Iago into the cove and being able to like take out a Maui shark that's exerted has to be spicy. I mean, there's a lot of other ways to deal with it, like Crab and Hypnotic Strength, but just having Cove is like another way to just like filter a lot of your bodies. You can prevent Genie from getting Sisu too, which I think is pretty gnarly, and that's also a very positive in this kind of list. And we're maxing out on a lot of discard cards, but with only 3 Prince John, which I understand there's a lot of uninkability in this deck and you just can't risk it. But we see 4 pull the lever and 2 wrong lever, so we do value the draw, and I do like that a lot. And it's again another action you can discard for Diablo.
And in top 8 of this Friday 10K tournament, we have an Amber Steel deck list piloted by Habibi, one of the top Amber Steel players in the Lorcana scene right now, playing a whole new world Amber Steel deck list with 1 copy of Aerial Sonic Warrior, which I like to see, and 2 copies of Namari, the single-minded rival. Now, we did kind of see Edmund Chu play a Namari-style Amber Steel singer-song list, right? But I don't remember if he was playing Whole New World. I want to say he was not, and instead they were playing more like Be Our Guest in that list. But this list kind of reminds me of that Edmund Chu World Champion list. I especially like the idea of running Prince Naveen in this list. It's just a very consistent way to be able to pull off cards like Zeus, Whole New World, or even the 1 copy of Grab Your Swords, which I've been seeing a lot more people play in this current meta. We just finished seeing 2 Emerald decks in first and second place of this tournament, and I feel like Grab Your Swords is really good against those decks, right?
We're seeing a lot of Prince John in these Emerald Amethyst lists, and that's a very solid card to deal with them. Got to keep in mind, though, the Emerald decks do have answers to rip songs out of your hand, and it's a little scary into that matchup, but you have a lot of bodies that are a little bit harder for them to deal with early on, and you can out-pressure them, and you can't forget Pete being the god card he is. I love Amber Steel. You guys will know that's my bread and butter, and one of my favorite things about this list is the 1 Sonic Warrior. I think that card is amazing. When purple is pretty strong color right now to play. I think that this is the purple killer, in my honest opinion. It deals with a lot of those threats. Being able to just chip at something with one song and finish it off with the aerial is always really good. Most of the time, you can do that too. Like Zeus and an aerial will take out a lot of threats. And it goes without saying that like Rapunzel is still one of the best cards in this game. Let's hope it gets reprinted in the Fabled set.
There's a lot of cards I hope get reprinted in Fable 2. Zach, be prepared, being one of them. Friends on the other side. I don't know how I'm going to be able to play the game without those cards. And I love seeing them in these top cut decks still. Camille Gombo's getting top 8 at this Friday PPG 10K tournament with an evasive Ruby Amethyst strategy. Very nice, very nice. 2 copies of Finders Keepers with 4 copies of Friends on the other side for some heavy draw power with some actions, right? We also got Genie Wish Fulfilled, which will draw you a card on the turn in which he's played, and 1 copy of Hades, the Ruthless Tyrant, another addition to the Ruby Amethyst deck list that lets you draw cards. I like this deck so much, dude. You're able to just keep your hand consistently full with the libraries, your genies, your Finders Keepers, but you're also constantly controlling the game with your removal. You have Brawl, Be Prep, you have Pirate's Life to control the lore on the board, and you even have some pretty big swingers with Mim Fox, Ursula, the Mad Sea Witch Queen, and Crab to bump up all your characters. Dude, Ruby Amethyst is still on top, bro. I am very proud of the Ruby Amethyst enjoyers of the format. I think a lot of people are definitely gravitating towards just you're playing Ruby Amethyst evasive. Like, that's the way this deck is, like, winning right now.
Yeah, I have a lot of people that have been coming to pick up like sharks, and they're just like, "Oh, should I be playing 3 or 4?" I'm like, "4." There's no reason not to because it's like part of the deck. It's like the card everybody's scared of when they know this is the matchup they're playing against. And I think you just have to play 4 just for the sheer consistency factor. And we have Peter Pan Shadowfinder is just another way to be able to like get the shark to challenge the turn they're played. So it's so good. We're not seeing Maui Hero to all into this list. It's maybe not needed because of the amount of like rush characters we have. And again, we have the Shadowfinder giving Iago and the Genie rush the turn they're played, so that can also help deal with some locations that are in play. And I think you also have to consider Crab still being a 4 of over Fox. And that's an interesting thing to see right now in this meta. We're valuing the bodies that stay on the board, and I think that's where you want to be right now. That's why we're playing the Ursula. Like all these cards can also stay on the board when they take 2 damage from this Hades. Everything that's not a 1-cost character, at least. So this is a very solid list. It's good to see Ruby M still crushing it.
I also quickly want to mention, no snakes. We're really just capitalizing on our 1-cost characters, and I like that a lot. Only 4 2-cost characters. The rest are 4 Chernobog, 4 Diablo, 3 Broom, and I think that's kind of the way you want to go with this deck right now. Like you mentioned earlier, Zach Stone, PPG had 2 tournaments this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Saturday was a 15K prize pool for the top cut players, and it had around 450 players. My goodness, I just want to take a second and say huge shout out to PPG for just throwing these banger events and being, you know, like the head of the Lorcana community when it comes to the standards that needs to be set with tournament organization, because the event looked so cool. I was watching it on stream from my phone whenever I could. I know Zach was texting me like, dang, we really should have gone to that thing, right? And it's a little hard for us to attend weekend events as of right now, but I was super excited to see some top-notch Lorcana gameplay. Ruby Sapphire took first place day 2. Shout out Non-Inkables Batsu for piloting Ruby Sapphire all the way to the top, looking a lot like the DKP World Championship list with some extra additions of Super Goof right here, maybe another copy of Maleficent Monsters Dragon, because we haven't seen this card played in a while. This is the first chapter, Mali Monsters Dragon. On play, you can banish any character. I don't know why this card fell off. I think this card is just as good, if not a little bit better than Hades, and I was pretty surprised to see people shifting to playing Hades and Ruby Sapphire. I understand, you know, it's 2 costs less, so it's probably a little bit better for your ink overall, but I don't know, the uninkability, giving your opponent an extra ink in their inkwell if you're playing a mirror match, I feel like, why not just play the Maleficent Monsters Dragon, right? Aside from that, Merlin's Carpet Bag making an appearance in DKP's deck and in this deck as well. A great way to recycle your popsicles if you don't draw into your Tamatoas in time, right?
Yeah, I love that the Merlin's Carpet Bag is also very good to just like force your opponent to like deal with certain threats, because you have McDuck Manor, you have the Merlin's Carpet Bag being able to recycle, which is an item, and you can always just play your big boss monsters, like you said, Tamatoa and the Maui Shark. It's a very consistent deck, and oh my gosh, do I get a little scared when I know I'm playing against Sapphire player, because they're going to time their Pirate's Lives correctly. They're going to time their McDuck Manners correctly. They're going to time their Tamatoas correctly. And when it's a mirror match too, it's a big battle of attrition. So I love that they are including more single target removal, like the Maleficent Monstrous Dragon. It may give you the edge you need in like the mirror match, I would say. But in a lot of other matchups, it being inkable also helps too, because you only have Tipo as a way to ink those uninkables, and you're playing 12, which is a little more than normal DKP lists have been seen.
Now, Zach, this was a huge tournament, so I want to go ahead and take a look at some top 16 deck lists as well from the Saturday event, because we have some spice here by Bad Vegas, making it all the way to top 16 with an Emerald Steel Chief Bogo Shift Control deck list. I really love to see this. This deck looks very spicy. Look at this. We have a bunch of Floodborne characters like Diablo, Pete Space Pirate, Helga St. Clair, Clarabelle, Beast, Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, even Prince Philip. Right? The reason why we got so many Floodborne characters is because we're playing 4 copies of Chief, buy one, get one, right? So he's a 4-cost uninkable character, 2 strength, 4 willpower that says whenever you play a Floodborne character, whenever, not whenever you shift, not whenever, you play one on the 4th Sunday of the month you want, whenever you play a Floodborne character, you deal 1 damage to each opposing character. That's pretty good in my opinion. It's kind of like a grab your swords that you can manipulate in your favor if you play multiple Floodborns in the same turn, and it's so easy to be able to do this with your Diablo shift package, with your Morph Space Goose, so you can have multiple shift targets. Love to see it. And look, we're even playing the Return of Hercules in this deck. You can play out a Floodborn character with Return of Hercules. If your opponent plays out a character with 1 willpower, that character is gone, right?
Yeah, and actually, Kevin, we need to talk about this combo with the Chief Bogo and the Prince Philip, because Prince Philip, the Vanquisher of Foes, does read that whenever you play this character, you banish all opposing damaged characters. So when you're playing Chief Bogo and your Return of Hercules, mind you, you have to already have the Chief Bogo in play and have enough ink to pay the Return of Hercules, or if you have 9 ink, you can do both in the same turn. And your opponent does get to play a character for free too. Your triggers will go in the bag first. So your Bogo goes in there, your Prince Philip goes in there, and you can take the Bogo out, deal a damage to all of their characters, and then take the Prince Philip out and banish each of their banished character, or each of their damaged characters.
Ooh, love it.
So that combo is crazy. Let's not forget the Helga St. Clair. This is one of my favorite Floodborns. I actually played Helga St. Clair in a list before, but she reads that whenever this character quests, you may deal 3 damage to chosen damage character. So it kind of lines up pretty well when you go Morph, and then later you go Chief Bogo, and then on the following turn you can shift into Helga, deal a damage to something, quest, and get rid of it for 3, because it's like a little Sonic Warrior in my opinion. But you have so many Floodborne characters that they're not going to know what to play around. They're just going to be scared of everything.
Yeah, dude. You even have a variety of songs because we're still playing Ursula Deceiver of All with the Storm Rage on. That's just a broken combo. I really like that you pointed out that Chief Bogo Prince Philip combo, because you do it on curve. You can play Chief Bogo on turn 4 and then the Return of Hercules on turn 5. And if you have the Prince Philip ready to go, that's a huge tempo swing. You're gonna have a 9-cost character on board by turn 5, and your opponent's not gonna have any characters potentially, right? Unless they have something with resist. But very awesome deck, very spicy. I really want to try this deck out myself at the local league. And in top 8 of the Saturday tournament, we have another Amber Emerald singer-song deck, Zach Stone, and this list looking a little familiar, don't you think? It looks exactly like Dre's deck that he played on Friday. Yes, we have a different player. Shout out Hal Brady for making it top 8 with the exact same deck list that Dre used the day before. Very awesome. Looks like Dre is over here inspiring some Lorcana trends. A lot of people might be shifting over to green-yellow, because this is actually this isn't the only green-yellow deck we're going to see in this top 8. We have another one, a green-yellow Chernadog deck over here. Shout out Christian Castro for making top 8 with Chernadogs. A list looking a little bit different than some of the other Emerald Amber lists that we've been seeing with this Lady in the Tramp package. We're playing 4 copies of Invited to the Ball. Very interesting. This card says reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, put revealed character cards into your hand, and then the rest go to the bottom of your deck. So if you reveal 2 characters off of this card, which is more than likely because you're playing a bunch of characters characters, then you're going to keep both in your hand. It's a pretty cool way to refill your hand. You know, you get a +1. It is uninkable, however, and we're playing 3 copies of our uninkable Chernobog, which I've been seeing kind of come in and out of the deck, right? Oh, and look at that, Zach. 2 copies of Jacques, the card that we got to reveal for our Reign of Jafar card reveal. Love to see that.
Yeah, Chernodog's actually doing well in this tournament, and it's a surprise to see because we haven't seen a lot of representation for Chernodog in a lot of these tournaments since the release of Reign of Jafar. I know a lot of hype was behind this deck, especially when the cards were first being revealed, but now that we're seeing the meta kind of play out, there's a lot of checks and balances, which I kind of like. But yeah, good to see my boy Jacques come into this game, and 4 copies of Rapunzel again. Please get reprinted and fabled.
I do want to point out, if you don't have Rapunzel, you can play some other draw cards like the Clarabelle. We have 3 copies of the 3-cost Clarabelle, which I've been playing in my Chernodog deck since the jump. I'm even playing the Shift Clarabelle. Just want to give you guys some tips. I think it's broken. On play, you have to draw a card if your opponent has more cards than you, and more than likely, because you're playing this deck, you're going to have less cards than your opponent in their hand. So some extra draw power there. If let's say, Rapunzel does not get reprinted in Fabled Zach, you can always play the Clarabelle Shift package. And another Emerald, Amber, deck list, Zach Stone. This color combo, you know, very good weekend. Very good weekend to be a yellow-green player, in my opinion. This deck looking a little bit different, way more aggressive. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call it Chernodog because we're not playing Chernobog, but we are still playing some of the Lady package. We're not playing any Tramp cards, so it's just Lady. You know, Lady green yellow. I like that. I like that. A lot of 1-cost characters. This list reminds me kind of the DKP aggro list, minus the Olivia Flavorsham, but we're adding the Lady enterprising dog right here, the Miss Park Avenue, decisive dog, and family dog, etc. A lot of different cards in here that quest for 2 or more, and 3 copies of blue, which will give you 2 lore when it's banished. A great way to finish off the game.
You also can't forget about Fred. Another way to gain that extra lore too, just without having to quest. This is still just a very strong deck with Gogo Tamago and Prince Philip, which I love. I love being able to exert the Prince Philip and get that 2 lore. They're forced to get rid of it, and if they kept the character that they damaged with it, you're gaining 3 more lore with the Gogo Tamago on curve, and I love that. We have the Donald Duck too for that extra reach. Sven to re-ready the characters so they can't interrupt them, and Flynn Rider, just another card from the first chapter we're still seeing play in this meta. It's good to know that like this card has lasted through the test of time. It's a very strong 2-cost card. Even though you're questing for 2, your opponent has to make a decision when they're challenging. And alongside Merfolk, you might be able to rip a lot of their cards out of their hand early on.
By the way, guys, that was from the Galactus Grand Prix tournament, as was this one, both top 8. This is the first place list, though, by Leonardo Zaccardi over here. This tournament was around 350 plus players as well. Pretty crazy. A lot of people are playing Lorcana. Love to see it. The game is more than alive. I just want to point that out, right? It's just we need some, third-party tournament organizers out here. So shout out these amazing Lorcana organizers for throwing these tournaments. So Ruby Sapphire items. I feel like a lot of people have been pivoting towards Ruby Sapphire items. We're still seeing Tamatoa So Shiny from the first chapter make an appearance right before it's about to get rotated out with 1 copy of Lucky Dime to make sure you can gain a bunch of lore. Maurice's Workshop, man, once this card hits the board, if you're not playing any item removal, they're just going to keep drawing cards. Even if you are playing item removal, they're going to have more than 1 copy of Maurice's Workshop anyway, so it's a very good card in this deck. You got Scrooge McDuck to search out any of these multiple items you have got going on, and Sapphire Coil plus Sisu means you can pretty much banish any character on the opposing side of the board.
Yeah, and we got Chicha in this list, which is an interesting draw package, but with the Fishbone Quill, it sounds perfect because playing Chicha on 2, having Quill on 3, getting that extra draw, and replacing the card that you just inked is very important because you don't want to lose a lot of card advantage with this deck, and that's why you are playing for Maurice's Workshop and a bunch of other 1-cost or 2-cost items. Of course, we have Force Sisu, and we're playing that over the 2 copies of Be Prepared, which I know has been taken out of the item list as like a way to just counteract the Emerald package, but I still like that they're playing 2 copies here. It might have been the reason why they were able to take down this tournament as the winner, but I love it. It's an overall like solid list. I think it's going to check a lot of other decks too that exist in the meta, and it's important because we need checks and balances in a TCG.
One last deck list from one last tournament to go over. We have the top 4 Amber Emerald deck list from the 2K Spilefest special tournament. This tournament had around 70 plus players, and Zach Stone, another Amber Emerald Song deck making its way to this top 8 deck. I think this deck is really good. I think people have been sleeping on this color combo, on this strategy. I think it fits in most metas. We've seen this strategy win a DLC before, Shadow Diego Saz. This list is looking a little bit different, though, than the Dre list we saw in the beginning of the video. We have Tramp the Street Dog and one copy of Chernobog. So this is kind of like a Chernodog deck, right? I didn't mention this earlier, but I just love seeing You Have Forgotten Me in these deck lists. This is a card from set 1 that just says each opponent discards 2 cards, right? So the curve from Prince John into You Have Forgotten Me can actually be pretty deadly if you have some other characters on board to sing your songs like Sudden Chill or Bare Necessities. Pretty soon your opponent has no cards in their hand, and you can kind of capitalize on that. And what I really like about adding the Tramp Enterprising Dog in this deck is that you normally go pretty wide, right? You have a lot of ward characters, so your characters tend to stick on the board, meaning that this Tramp will cost 1 less per character you have on the board. And on play, this will really help you search for that missing combo piece that you're looking for so that you can follow up with an Under the Sea Kita combo potentially.
Yeah, we're not seeing Aladdin in this list, and instead we have the 3 copies of Sir Hiss in the 2-drop slot. This is more able to deal with the evasive package and also get rid of Peter Pan Shadowfinder, ever, which I do kind of like to see. But being able to just have Cricky in your list too means that can take out a Maui Shark later on in the game if you ever do need to like remove it. You have a lot of other solid bodies, like you mentioned, the Tramp and the Bog, that are just going to be hard to deal with threats. And don't forget, Kita's still a card you don't need to have Under the Sea with to get a lot of utility. You have a lot of cards that can quest for a lot, and if you blanket the board with no damage, your opponent might not be able to get rid of your board, and that means you can quest again for a lot more since you have the Kita in play.
Overall, feels like a very diverse meta still. I feel like Emerald Amber just kind of popped off out of nowhere this weekend in this kind of meta, but as of the recent tournament reports, this is still the meta matrix on inkdex.com. Steel Song and Steel Song Aggro looking like the top decks with like the overall highest win rates. We didn't see much Blurple in this past weekend find success in top 8s. There were some in the top 16s of these big tournaments, like 1 or 2 outliers, but it didn't feel like it necessarily dominated this weekend. How are we feeling about the rest of this win rate matrix?
Kevin, it's looking like it's on par. Let me actually kind of look at it more objectively and kind of like point out a couple. Okay, so we got Red Blue Burn, which I'm assuming is DKP, and we're seeing Steel Song have a very low win rate against it, right? I think like 33% for Steel Song overall. Am I reading that correct? Steel Song, yeah. So Steel Song has a low win rate against that matchup, but against the item, yeah, against the item list again. So that and the Red Ruby Control seem to be more of its like harder matchups. It's pretty even or more favored across the board in other matchups, and that's why it gives it one of the best overall ones. Gotta go over the item, the red blue item. I think looking like it's got I'm sorry. Is it the song deck? The song deck is looking like it's got the highest overall next to the Emerald Amethyst Bounce. So Lemon Lime, it's looking like it's your time.
Yeah, after this weekend, this Lemon Lime win rate looks really nice, right? 56%. It's one of the highest, if not the highest right now. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing the rise of a Lemon Lime song take over the Lorcana metagame because set champ's happening this weekend. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video so far. We're going to go over some hand-altering scenarios so you guys can practice for your Mulligan strategies when playing in your upcoming tournaments. And real quick, once again, huge shout out to PPG for hosting some of the biggest tournaments that happened this weekend on Friday and Saturday. They're actually going to be hosting another huge tournament in Denver, a $50,000 $1,000 tournament in rewards, September 12th through the 14th in Aurora, Colorado. Zach, you want to tell us a little bit about how you can get into this tournament?
Yeah, so I know that they're going to have some Eventbrite tickets go live. I'm not too sure exactly when, but make sure you guys are updated by following Pro Play Games' Twitter account. I know that there's going to be stores that have an opportunity to host like qualifying events, meaning their store can have a player that wins it get a first round buy into the bigger tournaments of these events. So remember, if you guys are store owners or are looking to host like a store qualifier, there will be a link down in our video description below where you guys can sign up to host a Pro Play Game Summit qualifier.
And now we have this Emerald Amber deck in our hands, Zach Stone. Let's go ahead and start the beginning altering process of our hand, right? We have 7 cards, double Ariel, the Spectacular Singer, double Muses, an Ursula Deceiver, and a Kita, Protector of Atlantis. We're playing Dre's list, the list he used to get first placed in Swiss on Friday. And let's just assume we're going in blind round 1, right? It's a best of 3 tournament. We have no idea what our opponent's playing. And this is our opening hand with the bare necessities I forgot to mention.
Yeah, so if we're not knowing what we're playing against and we are going first, I think we have to really consider that Muses is just one of the strongest cards in this deck. And we're not playing like an aggro deck. We don't need to find one cost characters. We don't need to play them on turn. Another important card in this deck is also Ariel, the Spectacular Singer. Now, we have to kind of think about Ursula Deceiver as being a card to keep because this is something that you can play on turn 2, although even if it doesn't rip a song out of your opponent's hand, it does give you information on what the matchup is. So you might have a clear like inking decision path to make that is a little bit more fluent. And I almost want to consider keeping the bare necessity because we are keeping muses. We are looking to play songs. And there's a big chance that we can find like Prince John, for example. And that's going to give us a lot of ways to find card draw. And I do want to take out some pretty powerful cards out of my opponent's hand. Remember, bare necessities can let you pick anything that's not a character, and Ursula lets you pick any song. So keep your decisions in mind when you discard certain cards with these ones, and make sure you're using these discard cards first before you play something like a Sudden Chill or a Chip. So I actually want to keep these 4 cards. Now, the reason why is because we have a solid curve with 2, 3, 4. We don't need the 1 cost card. I know we actually asked Dre about his mulliganing decisions, and he did say in some matchups you actually ink your Diablo turn 1 and pass and not play it. So let's see what we get. I think this is fine. Not much has changed, except we have a couple different decisions on turn 2 now. So we got Akita again, and that's really good too because we eventually blanket the C, and we have a 2, and we have a 3 and a 4. But the 2 and the 4 are warded, so we're almost there to having a fully protected board to sing under the sea, which is the point of playing this Aladdin. And we have double Ursula, which means we can ink one. Kevin, how do you like this hand now?
This deck is hard to play. That's how I feel about this hand. This deck is hard to play. I look at this hand and I think I have no idea what to do. I'd have to really practice to like think about the lines after committing, but I do feel like your aim is to set up ward characters so that you can start controlling the board, controlling the hand, and I do like that we can set that up with our Ursula Ariel curve, and then you can start playing Muses, and hopefully that Ariel will find us some decent songs, or maybe we do find a Prince John. I feel like Prince John does kind of feel like the overall engine of this deck, right? You don't have too much draw power, so outside of Prince John and Diablo, you do kind of have to manage your resources effectively. So I do like that we did keep the Ariel. I guess I'd be worried about keeping a bare necessity just because of like an Emerald mirror match, but you know, you got to play into your deck's engine. So I like that you're trying to look for the Prince John.
I do want to point out one thing too. We kept Ariel and we kept Muses and we kept the song. So even if we slow roll the song later, we could do something like we go Ariel, Muses, sing a song with Ariel, bounce back your Ariel, replay your Ariel, and just get more cards that way. Because again, this deck has to be played in a certain way. And you're right, Kevin, it is hard to play. I played a good amount of Emerald Amber in other previous sets, and it's tickled my brain in an interesting way. But I've gotten used to like some of the mechanics and what you're trying to do, and you really have to use all your cards to their fullest potential and know what to do in each specific matchup, like you said.
Okay, Zach, so let me take a crack at this one. Since you're a little bit more experienced with the Emerald Amber strategy, and overall, you're more of an Emerald player than I am. I'm gonna see how I feel about this hand, right? So I see Prince John, I keep Prince John. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter if I'm going first or second. I think this card is broken. This card I think should be banned first in Diablo. Not that they require a ban, but I think that's how good this card is. So I want to keep Prince John, right? And because I'm keeping Prince John, I kind of want to keep this strategy line of Aladdin, Prince John, Sing Sudden Chill combo. Maybe that that's too greedy depending on what my opponent's playing. Maybe I don't need to do that immediately, but I feel like this is kind of looking kind of good. And Muses, you said it earlier, one of the strongest cards in the deck. Kind of want to keep this too, to kind of see what happens with this curve, because there's a world where you can trigger the Muses with the sudden chill and then and the same turn and a Prince John. So I would probably feel comfortable putting back these three in hopes of finding something like maybe Ariel, or maybe I want to find a You Have Forgotten Me, so I can do that on turn 4 on curve. What do you think?
Yeah, so I like that you talked about if you see Prince John, you keep Prince John. Something that Dre did mention when we reached out to him was that this card is basically an auto keep. It doesn't matter what matchup, when you're going first or second. It's very important to have this card because
Simple plan. We see Prince John, we keep Prince John.
most of the time, that's what everyone's kind of scared of, and that's what a lot of people have like very little answers to deal with. A static ability that literally can't be dealt with by target removal is a problem in this game. But we have to remember that like Prince John decks are very like swingy, and sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. But you do have the 2/3/4 ward, which means when you do find an Under the Sea, you are able to play it. I'm curious to see, like a thought of in my head is, are we willing to keep like painting the roses red? Because if we are playing against an aggro deck, we are going to be able to Muses bounce back a bunch of stuff. Even if we keep like Lost in the Woods, we can even bounce back certain like 4 strength characters like Iago, and that might even like be relevant. But I like what you decided to do with this decision keeping. It's a little risky because again, Lost in the Woods is a one of. I don't know if I keep it as a one of, but putting back more songs means your aerial spectacular hit better. So let's roll with this. I think this is fine, and I think it just got even better.
Oh yeah, I like it now. I like it a little bit more now.
Now you have options, and having Kita is super important because you're able to just blanket the board. And remember, you have the Louis to be a little bit more. But I'm gonna be honest, if I'm going first and I don't know what I'm playing against, I'm more than likely inking Louis because I just don't know if I even want to play him on turn 3. I don't think I'm gonna even play him on turn 5. I just think I have like the rest of my curve already lined up, and I think that's the only reason why I'm inking him turn 1. It's not because I don't think he's a good card right now. It's just like every other card I have is just better.
Yeah, Louis is a card that's kind of like for specific scenarios. And I feel you on that. Where you, it's the first card that I thought that I want to ink. Normally, when you're playing Lorcana, it's kind of like ink the highest cost card in your hand first because you're not going to get to it for a while. But in this kind of scenario, in this kind of strategy, you really are playing. With this deck, you have to play like 5 turns ahead. Like you really have to see your curve, like coming from a mile away, in my opinion. And I like that we had the setup of 2-cost ward character, 3-cost ward character, 4-cost ward character. Because we're going to be able to sing Under the Sea, right? So if we find Under the Sea and we curve into it with this Kita, it just feels like GG. And Louis not necessarily a part of that game plan. Louis in this deck, I think, because you want to slow the game down if you're going second against some of the more aggressive decks, like you were saying, Zach. If they're questing with their daisies, their genies and stuff, that's where Louis kind of comes in. And if we're going first, I feel like we can kind of mitigate a little bit more of that aggression.
Okay, and we have another hand, and going first or going second, when you have Diablo Shift package, it's really up to like what other cards are you going to keep alongside it. Dre did mention that in some matchups, it's actually worth thinking Diablo turn 1. I didn't get any more information on like what that is what you're looking to do in. So it might be up to us to think about it a little bit more. And I think for sure, Kevin, you've clicked too many X's that I'm comfortable with because I think we 1,000% need to keep Ursula Deceiver and Bare Necessities. You have to remember that like you have Diablo, you have Shift, you have a way to like rip 2 answers to Diablo, especially if you're going second too. Like this is very important. So being able to just like look at the hand with Diablo turn 1, seeing if you will need to keep Bare Necessities or keep Ursula Deceiver, right? Because they can be cards you can ink and even discard to Shift on top of next turn. So you have an action that you have to keep with Diablo. And it allows you to just swing the game in a way that's like totally unfair. Kevin, I don't know if you've played with Emerald Amber like in this kind of way before, because when you have Diablo and you can dictate what cards your opponent can play, it's super impressive. So we keep this, and I
Can you give
think it's
me?
fine putting back the other three, but there's a world where we also keep like the Bruno as like another action in case we do want to like hard swing the line where we just like get rid of all opponent's cards and just draw a bunch with Diablo.
Can you give the viewers an example, like in a scenario that you've been in where you felt like, oh, I've been able to combo off, like you said, to know my opponent's hand, or even control their hand of with a, or even control their Diablo outs in their hand?
Well, yeah. So like if my opponent does start off with like a Cinderella turn, this is where I can say, oh, this is where we ink the Diablo turn one. Because I'm not gonna play Diablo to just see the Storm Rage on in their hand. And I'm not shifting Diablo no matter what. I don't want to give that card value. I instead can just ink it and pass and play like Ursula Deceiver. See their hand with Ursula Deceiver, rip a song that they have, figure out if the Bare Necessities is even worth keeping because again, you have Diablo to play on turn 3. So you can use Bare Necessities to rip another Diablo out and slowly take over the game that way by questing and keeping Diablo exerted and well protected. It's a way to like go back and forth. If you are playing against Ruby Sapphire deck and you go turn one Diablo and you see that they have like Sapphire Coil, they're more than likely going to get that Sapphire Coil down, so you have a less of an impact. We know that they play very little songs, so you can go ahead and ink your Ursula Deceiver after that. Bare Necessities can either be discarded or kept, and you have a lot of different decisions and a lot of different matches. You have to know what you're doing with this deck into every single other deck you're playing. It's not an easy deck to play.
Definitely not an easy deck to play. So we're going to put these three cards back, Zackstone, and it's looking like we see another Diablo, and Under the Sea, and a Prince John. Very nice, very nice. Now we have some extra cards to discard for our Diablo shift line. You know, you can, if we're going second, and they don't play something like Cinderella, you can play Diablo, look at their hand. Next turn, you shift Diablo by discarding Under the Sea. Then you can, maybe you're a little more patient than I am, but you can either play Ursula or Bare Necessities, and or on turn 3, you can play Prince John, and then play Bare Necessities. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, so if we're going second, I am looking to find an inkable card. But if I don't, I will ink the Ursula because I will look at their hand and be able to decide if Bare Necessities is going to get inked next turn or I need to keep it. Like you did mention, I am more than likely looking to play Prince John and then sing Bare Necessities rather than do it before I play Prince John because the cards that I'm going to get off of the discard are very important. And again, it's one of your few draw engines besides the Diablo. And having both your draw engines in play at the same time just overpowered. Finding more discard cards like Chip or Sudden Chill, or even You Have Forgotten Me if you get that far, because again, that's just the game ender. Prince John into You Have Forgotten Me, and if you're going second, your opponent started with one less card. You're going to just completely waste all their resources.
All right, and one more hand before we call it a day on this Monday Meta Watch video. We have a Muses, Chip the Thinker, Ursula Deceiver, Louis the Endearing Alligator, Sudden Chill, Maleficent Spy Diablo, and a Painting the Roses Red. Now, Zach, let me lead off on this one again. We're going second this time. So I feel like I want to keep Louis. Now, I'm just going to hypothetically X all of them. I want to keep Louis. I want to keep Diablo. It's a one-cost character, and if we do see the shift Diablo, I feel like that's kind of nice, right? I don't know how I feel about keeping Ursula, but if we're going in blind, I feel like this card can really save us in an interesting situation. You know, Amber Steel feels like a kind of a hard matchup, and you just mentioned if they open up Cinderella Ballroom Sensation turn 1, the play is going to be Ink Diablo, play Ursula on turn 2, so I kind of do want to keep it. It's funny because if you had not said that just 2 minutes ago, I probably would have inked this Ursula. But I feel like you mentioning that kind of makes me understand more. That's how you play that matchup, or which might be kind of a harder matchup. I like the Louis. I like keeping the Lewis over here for going second because if we are playing on the draw against some of these aggro decks, that's what this card is for. I feel like it can kind of slow the game down in our favor as well. And I maybe might keep Muses. I don't know if that's too greedy going second though, but it feels wrong to mulligan the Muses. So what do you think? Let's go ahead and keep the Muses. That's what I say.
So you had some good points. Something that I kind of want to think about too is we might be playing against more Diablo decks, and because of that, what I think is important to really like focus on is Louis because it's an answer to Diablo in a weird way. And because we have Louis and we have Ursula Deceiver, I think we actually want to kind of keep both of them because you can be able to like rip a song out of their hand. If they have like a Shift Diablo, you can then play Louis. Make sure you don't have any other characters exerted because Louis is the only character exerted. And you can make Diablo reckless. If they don't have a song, they're forced to challenge, meaning they gotta get rid of their own Diablo into Louis. Maybe they have another character to be able to swing, and that means that they can't quest and exert their Diablo. And that could be a difference maker because then you could actually deploy muses and then bounce the Diablo and completely slow their tempo down, which is like crazy. And they didn't get a card draw out of it. They had to like waste another turn being able to like not get rid of Diablo, like force themselves not to be able to like challenge away their own Diablo. And then you've given yourself like the ability to like take the game over. And again, it's like a very complicated way to like play out Lorcana, but like that's like something you might have to do with a deck like this. Like you have to really like go into like the think tank. And I'm not gonna lie, it may not work out like all the time, but like giving yourself the best chance to win is how I play card games.
Let's go ahead and put these 3 cards back: Roses, Red, Sudden Chill, and Chip. And we find You Have Forgotten Me and Double Aerial. Very nice, very nice. You probably start off the turn, maybe possibly inking. If you're going second, depending what you draw, right, that makes a difference on what you're going to ink. But just going off of these cards, You Have Forgotten Me feels like a card that might not be played anytime soon if we're going second. Because you can, find the curve of possibly Diablo, get some information, or go from there. I like that we have Aerial into Muses, because if we don't need to play this Louis on turn 3, then we can go Aerial, find a song for Muses, and start comboing off like you mentioned.
Yeah, if we're going second, then we get a little bit more information, plus we draw another card. But first, I actually don't ink You Have Forgotten Me. Here, I actually ink Aerial because one, I have another one, and two, if I draw a Shift Diablo, I got no action to discard, and I would not want to be
very
in that
important.
situation.
Very important.
You have to think. You have to think about, like, again, giving yourself the best chances to win. And what does that mean? Making sure you keep these cards in case you do draw the card you need.
Diablo,
right?
yeah. It's always good to top deck a Diablo, so you might as well put yourself in that position to top deck that Shift Diablo. Very good point, Zach. There's even a world where, you're going second, you still do that if you want to risk it and play Diablo on turn 1. And let's say you even know the matchup right and you're totally down to play this Diablo on turn 1 for whatever reason, then there you go. You set yourself up to possibly top deck that Shift Diablo. I wouldn't recommend relying on that strat, but, if there's ever a situation where it calls for that, that's kind of the idea, the strategy behind that way of thinking, right? But that's going to be all for this Monday Meta Watch video. My Lorcana Goons, thank you so much for watching and joining Zach Stone and I as we break down the Lorcana meta before Set Champs, right? This is the first Set Champs weekend that we're going to have for our Reign of Jafar season, and I'm very excited to see what you guys cook up for the season.
Yes, guys. And remember, we are going to have our Discord link down below. So make sure you guys get in our Discord. Drop these deck lists that you guys are playing at your Set Champs and talk about your tournament experiences. Again, we will be featuring some of the lists that are in our Discord server during Set Champs weeks. And please give us all the information needed. Tell us the cards you'd want to change. Tell us what stood out and what was very helpful to you. And what was a card that just didn't do enough or you didn't see enough. And even go over some like mulliganing tips, because again, we like to put all this information out there so all you guys can make your own decisions based off everything. And it's important that we all work together and share this info because there's not enough time in the day for.
Very well said, Zach Stone. Links will be in the description down below for all of these deck lists, for inktable.com, for the Pro Play Games tournament information, and our social medias if you want to keep up with the Lorcana Goon Squad community. Remember, guys, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe, please, if you're not subscribed yet, because it definitely supports the channel. But until then, we'll see you goons next time.